All right, we're gonna wait till the stream pops. Oh, there we are. There we are. Awesome. We're live on the Audio Diction channel. I'm gonna give it a minute before everybody kind of kicks in and all that stuff. So if you come in, uh, come say what's up. But I'll probably start in like the next minute. I'm looking at elapsed time, so it should probably be about a minute when I start doing it. Hopefully, everybody's been having a good time watching these live videos. I've been really enjoying them over the past couple videos that I've done recently. So it's been really fun, and I've been really enjoying doing this. And I'm probably going to make it more of a main staple in 2020. So I'm glad you guys have been enjoying it. For those of you who have been commenting and all that sort of stuff, it's greatly appreciated because it obviously shows me what's going on. But tonight we are going to be doing something really big tonight. We're going to be talking about the albums and the EPs of the year. I figured I'd do it live just because I feel like I want to know what you guys have picked for albums and EPs of the year. It's something that has been kind of a tumultuous year for me in terms of like albums that I've enjoyed, albums that I am excited to listen to in 2020, and then obviously some of my favorites from this year. So I'm going to be starting out with the EPs, which obviously, as you can tell, the first one, number 10, is Felicity's Old Habits. They are a band from Florida. They kind of combine like hard rock and like pop punk mixed together. I thought this EP was like extremely well executed. Some of my critiques on the EP I think still stand, but I really enjoyed this record thoroughly. If you are a fan of like Story of the Year, like 4 Years Strong, those sorts of bands, you will definitely love this record, and I feel like a lot of people will come to enjoy this one. So you should definitely go give this one a listen. I will try to leave all applicable links below. If not, I've done most of the reviews for a lot of the records that I have on this list and on the albums of the year's list as well. So if you are and feel so inclined to go check out those bands, because a lot of these bands really work hard and spend a lot of time and effort into it. So I feel like they would be greatly appreciated, not only in my behalf, but also on the band's half to go check them out. So Felicity's Old Habits, number 10. My number 9 is Chronologist's Solstice 1, but honestly, any of the EPs I could realistically put in this slot, just because they actually released 4 EPs over the span of the equinoxes and the solstices of this year, which I think is an incredible concept, not only from like a musical standpoint, just by doing like 4 EPs throughout the year, which is I feel like is pretty insane, versus like just the kind of concept of the solstice equinox thing. I thought that was really awesome, and all of the albums have their own like unique like spin and flavor to it, and it's one that again, Solstice 1 is the one that I enjoyed the most, but like I said, realistically, any of the second, they just released Solstice 2, which was really great, and I unfortunately didn't get around to reviewing it. Same with Equinox 2, but all of them I had listened to, and I had thought about before, doing this, compiling this list, and I just felt like I had to include this on there just because they are a sick instrumental band. They are all like graduates of like Berkeley, and they all do different stuff in the music industry, but when they come together, it's just so wicked. And I was so fortunate enough to do the 2 reviews, and I hope down the line to get to the other 2 eventually. So we're gonna move it into. Well, I don't keep changing this for some reason. I'm kind of a dumbass. So we're gonna move it on to the next one, which is Sauce's Bedtime Stories. You should go give this one a listen, because they are a local New Jersey band. Fun fact: I actually was managing them for a good bit of time, and we are all on good terms. We did not, at least to my knowledge, Adam, if you're watching this somehow, you can comment below. But um, yeah, I've had a heavy hand in this. Well, not a heavy hand, but I had my name in this record, and it just felt like, to me, not only from like a musical standpoint, I really enjoyed the album or the EP, I mean, per se, but also I think they're a bunch of great dudes, and they write some really awesome like instrumental music that I'm excited to see what they do in 2020, because I know, almost am positive that they'll be working on new stuff. So go give this one a listen if you're a fan of like Chon. They do a lot of electronic stuff too as well. So like, bands like Polyphia, if you enjoy that sort of stuff, then you'll be well versed in this band. So go give Sauce a listen. Bedtime Stories, that is number 8. So we're going to move it into number 7, which is Hollower's self-titled record. I've been just a big fan of their stuff for a very long time. They've been a big proponent of the channel, so salutes to you guys. But this record is so good. Like, and it was just so hard for me to compile kind of a list. And as you know, and if you are familiar with the channel, you know how hard it is for me to compile a list. But this one I felt like I had to have on there just because the like technical prowess of it, the vocals deliveries are super tight, the drumming's insane, and just instrumentally it's just so just heavy, aggressive, out the gate, and there's just some like melodic beauty behind it that I feel like a lot of people have slept on this year, and I feel a little bit unfortunate because I wish that they were bigger, but my God, this record is so great. I also did a review of this, as I mentioned before. I have done a good amount of reviews for a lot of these records, so go give this one a listen. It is Hollower's self-titled. So we're going to move it into number 6, which is Visenya's Commonplace, another local New Jersey band, and they put out a really awesome EP as well. I think James has such a unique like character to his voice. He kind of almost pulls from like a soul and like R&B background, but the instrumentals feel like very like progressive post-hardcore. I think bands that remind me of them are like Hail the Sun, DGD. I think even like more modernly, Royal Coda. I'm getting my vitamin water right here just so I stay I'm not gonna say what I was gonna say, but I need to get the drink. But anyway, it was such a great EP. I think that they showed off their skills as a band, and I'm curious to see what they do next. I really feel like they have a lot of potential, and just by listening to this EP more currently, just getting back into a lot of the records that I had done reviews for, this one I came back and I was like, I had to have this on the list just because they are probably one of my favorite local bands in the area. They did not pay me to say that. I feel like their performances are always really tight. Chris has some really great tone on stage, and I know James just swapped over to the vocals, which is definitely really cool, and I think it brings it. I think it gives him more time to do what he does. But if you haven't seen them, hopefully they'll be doing some touring in 2020. Not sure yet. I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I feel like it could be possible to see them soon. But you should go give Visenya's Commonplace a listen. So we're going to move on to the next one, which is number 5. This is Daniela Andrade's Tamale. I don't know if this would constitute an EP, but I felt like it was it was just something I had to add on, whether it be albums or EPs, and I really don't know what quantifies an EP over an album. I would assume that an EP is like anywhere between like 3 to maybe 7 songs max would be an EP, and then anything after that is like an album. But anyway, this EP or album, whatever you want to call it, is fantastic. I talked about it when I did albums that I missed a few days ago, and this record still gets me all the time. I love the kind of lo-fi quality it has to it, but also like her ability to kind of incorporate jazz and just how unique her vocal style is. I just think it is so like atypical to like artists that I personally listen to, but also I feel like it's very different from a lot of pop artists that are on there. I know that I had compared her voice to Ellie Goulding's. I still feel like that holds true just in terms of like, how wispy and like ambient and how like melodic her voice is. It just works out. I really can't put this EP into words, but she is a fantastic singer, and hopefully if she gets around to seeing that, that would be very awesome. But just I'm excited to see what she does next musically. Like I said, I have been following her since her YouTube days, and this just feels like just that next evolutionary step. It doesn't feel like she's being, I guess cheesy about it. If I don't even know if that's maybe the adjective to describe it, but I feel like she's not really copping out on what type of record she wants to put out. I feel like this is very much in her lane. It's what her styling is, and just based off of what she does in covers, I feel like she keeps true to her nature as an artist, and so I had to have her at least in the top 5 for this year. So we're going to move it into the next one, which is Hostile by Widmore. Widmore, Hostile. Sorry, I got it mixed up. Dyslexic. But this record is awesome. I got to give a major shout to my Canadian boys. I love them so much, but this EP is just so off the wall to me. It was one that really took me back, just as like an artist and stuff like that. I know that they combine a lot of aspects of like R&B and soul, and Rule has that like that tendency to do stuff. I know that I have compared him a lot to like Tyler Carter in the way that like he delivers vocal lines, and just how R&B and soulful his voice is. I definitely feel like he could rival Tyler Carter any day. I would put money on it. I don't care. Just because I feel like that's how good of a singer he is, and just the rest of the band sounds awesome. And my one gripe I think on it was that they don't get utilized as much, and I know that they're all like fantastic singers. If you've seen them live, you know that they are all awesome singers, but to me it just felt like they know what they're doing, know what they wanted, and in this EP, I feel like they executed even more so. I still have the tag on my keys of the first record that they did, and this one just blows it out of the water. I feel like if they had somebody that produced their music, like a Chris Crummett or like an Eric Ron or somebody like that, I would bet money that they would be signed by whatever the end of the year is, just because they have that much talent. And I think a lot of labels, if you are watching, I feel like you're sleeping on this band, and you shouldn't be. So go give Widmore's Hostile EP a listen. Again, always got salutes to the boys. Love those guys. Go give this one a listen. So we're going to move into the next one, number 3, which is Flight Club's Recreational Love. I was going to say Recreation Love. That wouldn't have made any sense. But Flight Club, if you don't know the name, you should go check them out. They're very sick. They're a pop punk band, pop punk alternative, like blues, rock. It's really hard to really nail down a genre, but I know that their roots are like alternative rock and like pop punk. But this band's EP, like, I feel dummy stupid for not doing a review of this one, just because and not even including it on the ones that I missed out on, because every time I see this band, and we've had some really great conversations, you should check out our interviews, and I've seen them live. I saw them live this year, which was crazy because I've been friends with them for a while. But this EP is nuts. Like, it just reminds me of like kind of similar to what like 4 Years Strong does, but like with maybe like more angst and more kind of like a blues like rock driven kind of sound to it. And it's really hard to relate to this band or like kind of like assimilate a band to this band just because they are just kind of, in my opinion, a league of their own. And this this record shows that their skills as a band just keep growing and growing. I loved the first EP that they did, and when I met them on Warped Tour, it was probably the record that I had listened to, or the EP that I had listened to for a good amount of the summer and into the fall and like winter time. And it's just incredible. But this one just feels like that much more of a next step. And as this band kind of evolves and grows, I am so stoked to see what they do in the future, just because it is so different from every other kind of pop punk alternative band out there. So if you haven't checked out Flight Club's Recreational Love, go give them a listen, because you will be super remiss if you didn't go check them out. So we're going to move into the next one, which is Like Mazda Flames, Where the Light Refuses to Go. I was heavily floored by this record. I think even more so than the number one record, or the number one EP of the year, just because for me this EP kind of came out of nowhere. I know they had released a single prior to them starting the Wage War tour, and I just thought, oh, maybe it's just like one song, maybe they'll do something. And then they dropped from Rise and they got picked up by Unified, and then they kind of went like, I wouldn't say AWOL, but they were kind of in secret, didn't really, talk too much about, they, obviously posted about the songs, but it was kind of a surprise to a lot of people that people were thinking they were doing a new record. And so this one, again, super heavy. I feel like it goes back to their roots as a band. I know that I had mentioned that in the albums I missed out on last year review thing, or this year, I mean. But it's so good. This one, I think I could listen to all 3 songs and really not get tired. And I probably had listened to this EP maybe 25 times or more, probably more. And it just resonates with me. It's super heavy, aggressive. It's everything that I was kind of hoping that they were going to do after An Eye for an Eye, but they wind up not doing that. I still really like Dark Divine. I know that some people are kind of on the fence about it, but I actually really enjoy that record. And this one, I just feel like is back to their roots, but also kind of a familiarity in Dark Divine. So we're going to move into the last one. My number one, I feel like most people wouldn't be surprised by this choice, but Spearbox's single collection, they just are on another level as a band. It's really honestly hard for me to put it into words how good they are as a band. And this, again, should be to no surprise of anybody that is familiar with the channel. They just rip it. And if you haven't checked out this singles collection or Rule of Nine, which they've released recently, I would highly recommend, after this video is over with, to go check it out and go give this one a listen, because if you're a fan of heavy, like progressive like metalcore stuff, this is right up your alley, and is one that I feel like you would be very stupid if you slept on. So go give this one a listen. Go actually give a listen to all of these, because honestly, this year was surprisingly very good. I mean, not to say that, most years aren't good with music. It's just so hard for me to just be like, oh my God, like there's just some like crazy shit happening. And so, this year had some really great moments, some really great records, some newer bands, some older bands coming out, and coming back to the fold. And so it's been a really crazy year for music. So those are my picks for EPs. I'd love to hear what you guys think in terms of what your picks are of EPs of the year are. I'd love to know. Drop them in the comments below. But we're going to move into the next one, which is actually going to be the albums of the year, which I'm going to start off with some honorable mentions. I know that I have done some beforehand when I've done albums and EPs of the year. But this one, I just felt like I didn't have as many, and I also wanted to kind of make the list a little bit more concise, just because past years I feel like I want to just kind of include everything, and I still do, but sometimes I feel like I go a little bit overboard. So the first honorable mention is Greyscale's Nella Vita. I was really surprised by this record. I will say that I really loved Adornment a ton, and to see them follow up with such a really strong record after having a good amount of time to listen to it is really surprises me. Maybe not from like kind of a fan standpoint, but I think musicality wise, I think they really kept it fresh. I wouldn't say, like I said, it's not one of my favorites, but I feel like as an artist and kind of really going into more of the pop sphere, or more like alternative indie sort of stuff, I really feel like they made the transition pretty well. And there's a lot of great catchy tunes on this track, and whoever they worked with, I think, did a fantastic job of bringing out those moments in this record. Again, I did a review of it, and you can listen to some of my favorites that I have on that record. But I think overall, it was just really well executed, and just one that I feel like if you are a fan of older Greyscale, I think there's some songs on there for you. But if you've recently found out about Greyscale, then I feel like, you'll be well in for it. And even like people from the pop sphere, I think will enjoy a lot of the songs off this record. So go give Nella Vita a listen. So we're going to move into the next one, which again, I don't know why my thing is not working. So I'm going to have to fix that real quick because well, I don't know why it can't. They just can't help me out here. Wow, this is not right. So we're gonna go back real quick. I'm gonna delete this. This is extremely bad. Let's see if that worked. Nope. That's weird. All right. Well. Oh man. Gonna pause this. So yeah. So now I'm dealing with technical difficulties. So I do apologize, guys. I know sometimes this can be a little bit disconcerting. Okay, here we go. We'll do it. There we go. All right, we're back in business now. All right, awesome. Well, for the one person that is watching this, thank you for sticking with my annoyance here. But we're going to move on to the next one, which, again, sorry for the inconvenience, and if you watch this later on, you'll get a good laugh. I know I'm going to get a good laugh when I watch it later on, but the next one is actually one that I didn't do a review on, which is Eat Your Heart Out, Fluorescens. They are a really fantastic band from Australia, and honestly, I was not really a big fan of their EP, Mind Games, and I was kind of reluctant to check this record out just because usually if I don't enjoy the first record, not to say that I wouldn't go into it again, but this one definitely surprised me a lot. If you're a fan of like, I don't even know how to explain it. Like they kind of have like this like post-hardcore feel in certain songs. They have like this like pop punk sort of vibe. They have like some indie vibes, and their vocalist, she's very tight. I think she does a great job of kind of like doing those sorts of heavier tracks, but also tracks that require her to have more of a melodic approach. It's just so well executed, and whoever did the mixing mastering on it did a fantastic job, because you can really hear everything. You can hear a lot of the bass tonalities, you can hear the great drumming parts, guitar parts, the vocals really turn out pretty well, and overall it's one that's super catchy from front to back, and I was really surprised a ton by this band. So go give Fluorescens a listen. I know it's not in my albums of the year, but I felt like I had to give it a mention just because when I was doing the reviews and stuff and like listening back to old records, that came out this year. This was one that I knew I had to add to at least the mentions of, just because I had a lot of playtime, probably not as much as some of the ones that were on here, but overall, great record from front to back. So we're going to move into the next one, which is a more current one, at least in my mind. And ironically, I'll be posting an interview with them on Friday, so come check back with that. But this one is Patternist's newest record. I don't know what I'm doing here. And if you're a fan of more like indie pop, kind of math rocky sort of stuff, a little bit of emo tinge in there, I think you'll dig this band a lot. I was pleasantly surprised by this record. In fact, I wasn't even sure if I was going to include this on here, but I had given it a listen. I had picked up their vinyl while they were on tour with Andreas, and I was just floored. I saw them live, and I think this was the first aspect of me seeing a band live, or not first time, but definitely one of the more memorable times that I've seen a band. I've really enjoyed seeing them live, and I had never seen them before, never listened to them before, and I was just really stoked to not only interview them, but also to listen to this record, because it's got some beautiful melodies in it, but also at the same time, it's really kind of math rocky. It's got some pop, indie pop sort of vibes to it that really bring up the energy, and so one that, again, I would be very remiss to not add onto the list, because Rhyme City over here. But this one was a really good one. Go give it a listen, because it is very awesome. So we're going to move it into the first one of my list, number 20. This is Woe's Awful Truth. I know that I had posted about a review of this one pretty early on in the year. And this one just stuck around. There's something about the melodies in this record. There's something about just the catchiness aspect of it. This band's just doing something different. I hope that they continue on with what they're doing, just because I feel like I don't know if they kind of dropped off or not. I just haven't been seeing a lot of posts about them recently, and I just hope that they haven't broken up, because I think they're very sick. But this debut record for them, at least the debut record for me, I don't know if this is their debut record or not, but I know it's their debut record through Unified. And it's a great kind of pop punk, pop, kind of similar to what Don Broco does in a sense, and just really fun melodies, really fun tracks, and just good overall. Again, I feel like I had to add this on the list because I had played this so much early on, and like I said, I had went back and listened to some of the older records, or some of the older records that I did reviews on earlier in the year, and this one just stuck out to me still, and I just had to include it on the list. So go give Woe's Awful Truth a listen. So we're going to move into the next one, which is the Ansible's Forever. Shout outs to my boy, Daryl. I love you, man. But this record is really awesome. I think Daryl's got really a fantastic voice, pretty underrated in the scene for sure. And just, there's just this beauty in the way that the songs are written. And I know that's kind of almost a cop-out answer, but honestly, his voice paired with a lot of the instrumentals on this record were really solid. And his voice just kind of cuts through everything, which is awesome. He doesn't have a really high voice. He's got some really good falsetto parts, but I just feel his just kind of more rounded tonality just really works with this record. Again, one that I had gone back and listened to as of recently, and I just really enjoyed his vocal style, the band, what they're going to be doing, and I hope they kind of continue this lane. I know that they've been doing pretty well in the Austin scene now, and just to see them obviously be signed to Stay Sick, which is really great, but also to see them continually to put out music, I feel like people should definitely go give this one a listen. A sleeper record for 2019 in my mind. So we're going to move it into the next one, which is other good homies of the channel, The Burden, Sinking Feeling. I know that this one came out pretty recently as well, but this one just stuck with me. Like I said, I was going through a lot of the records of this year, and this one just gives me that under oath fix that I need, and so much more. These boys are so talented. They're from Vancouver, and honestly, their abilities to write just like really emotional songs. I think obviously pulling a lot from a band that I will be mentioning later on. Just just the emotional aspect of their music, this record, it just kind of hits home, and I think that when I go back and I think about records, I think about kind of the emotional significance of a record, and this one just just put in my mind that I needed to have this on the list, as well as that just one that kind of stuck with me as a human being, and just like listening to a lot of music. This one definitely cut a little bit deeper. I could resonate with a lot of the lyricism behind it, and I feel like I didn't go over a lot of it in the review, but you can go listen to the lyrics, or I mean, listen to the song and read the lyrics of the said songs. But this one again had to have on my list, and definitely one that you should go give a listen to. So we're gonna move into the next one, which is North Lane's record Alien. I will say I wasn't on board with this record at first, and I know that I had mentioned that in the little albums I missed live session. I think it was not this week, but the following Saturday, or maybe not. No, actually, I put it a couple days ago. But this record really took me by surprise. I've always been a fan of Marcus as a vocalist. I've always loved North Lane. I didn't inexclusively love either one of them more than the other, but I just felt like when Marcus joined this band, I wasn't really sold on it at first. I felt like Mesmer was a good point to start to hear like Marcus really kind of do his thing and be comfortable singing and screaming and doing all that stuff. I felt like Node was something that musically was very good, but I feel like, and same with Mesmer too, but I think with Node, it just vocally he wasn't in all there, and this record being their third record with him, I just feel like all the keys are working, all the cogs are working, the machine is well oiled. I think that he's had a lot of time to tour with North Lane, and obviously be a full-time member of the band, and it shows in a record like this. It's just so incredibly heavy, but also at the same time they really include a lot of cool elements of electronics, and it was one for the books for sure. I think it really rekindled my love for North Lane. I've never really kind of like, I guess, fell off the wagon entirely, but I think this one definitely brought me back into the fold in terms of North Lane, and I'm really excited to see what they do next. I love the heavy influence of electronics. There's another band that's on this list that's a little bit higher that I feel like maybe did a slight bit better, but I think overall, their whole concept of this record is really solid. I feel like if you love like Meteora or like Hybrid Theory from Linkin Park, rest in peace Chester, then you'll definitely enjoy this record a ton, just because I feel like you can hear those old school Linkin Park vibes, and they are definitely strong in a lot of the like instrumentals, electronics, all that sort of stuff. So go give North Lane's Alien a listen. So we're gonna move into the next one, which again was another one I didn't do a review on, but also included in my albums that I missed out on. But this one is 1,000 Below's Gone in Your Wake. This one really surprised me as well. I thought it was super good, and I think it was a good follow-up to their last record. Even more so, I feel like there's a lot more clean singing in it, which I think James does a really great job of. But I think their song structure, their writing this time just feels a little bit more cohesive. It feels more thought out. I know that they went with Eric Ron, I believe, with this record, and it just feels right. Everything that they're doing with this record, I hope that they continue to do with future releases. They had some really good vocal features Ironically enough, Marcus from Northlane was on this record, as well as I believe it is the bass player, and also singer from Heart of Gold, which is the bass player of Being as an Ocean and the singer of Heart of Gold. Featured on one of the tracks as well, and he's got a fantastic voice too. So I think the culmination of not only really great songwriting that kind of transposes both like heavy moments and melodic moments, but also like really just well executed post-hardcore like alternative rock sort of stuff. It really hits you to your core, and I also feel like lyrically it is the strongest material. I think even more so than the last one. They took just their level of lyricism just to another level on this record, and I was really, again, super surprised, and I know I keep saying that about a lot of these records, but this one really, truly, honestly surprised me at how good it was and how it did remain in a lot of the times that I would go on drives and listen to this record. So we're going to move into the next one, which is While She Sleeps, So What. As you know, I'm a pretty big fan of this band. I feel like the past two records that they've done, You Are We, and this one, So What, have been a really good musical direction for them. I know Laws, their singer, has had some vocal complications and stuff, and he just seems to they just seem to find out ways to make him still work in the band and for the other band to kind of step up as artists. And this one feels like a really good culmination of all of that. I think it's Faker's Plague, the one that they just released, is also another fantastic track. Obviously not included on this record, but also one you should go give a listen to. But getting back to So What, I really enjoyed kind of like the real catchiness of it. I was really surprised at how catchy this record was. I think that they really were able to turn something that would have affected their band and their life, and they really flipped the script. I love how they did the marketing on this record. But getting back to kind of like flipping the script, I think that, like I had mentioned before, Laws had to get some vocal surgeries and stuff, and I think that the way that they were still able to not only include his voice, but also for their guitar players to step up vocally in that respect, I think really brought a different element, a different flavor. And I know that they also did it in You Are We, but it just felt right. Every one of these songs off this record really kind of just hits, and going back and listening to it again, I think it further solidifies how great of a record is, and also I think it shows how many better records, in my opinion, kind of came out this year. And for this one to be just kind of up there and be literally number 15 on my list, this one is just one that you should give a listen to if you're a fan of like more metalcore and like I would say like hard rock and like hardcore a little bit. They really got something special going on. So go give While She Sleeps, So What a listen. So we're going to move into the next one. As you know, I had to include this band on the list. I've been a big fan of Holding Absence for a very long time, back when my homie Fiesel was in the band. But I think everything that they've done up to this current point has been really solid. I know they've been relatively quiet prior to this release, and I know that they were trying to come to the U.S., I believe, and it just didn't happen because of visas issues. But I hope that eventually I'll be able to see them live in the States, because that would be very awesome. And they also released a deluxe version of it, which I haven't heard yet. Shout out to my boy Elijah. He was the one who gave me the lookout for that. But I, again, regretfully haven't checked it out. I know it is really good, and I know a good majority of it are like acoustic versions of the songs that are on this record. So I don't feel terrible, but I would love to hear the new song. But getting back to their self-titled record, I think that this one has some really beautiful ambient melodic elements to it. I think that they really kind of hit the nail on the head in that sort of like genre. I know also Being in an Ocean does stuff like that. And like I feel like another band that does that pretty well is like Silent Planet. They do a lot of like really interesting like ethereal like ambient instrumental lines, and this one just feels right. There's a lot of really catchy songs out this record, and I was just so stoked to listen to this record from front to back. I think what they're doing so far, and what I hope they continue to do, this style of music as time goes on, because they really, I feel like, need to hit the nail on the head and really worked with what they got. So we're going to move into the next one, which is Cold Rains, the Side Effects, as I have mentioned before. I feel like I've been mentioning it a lot, but just because I, again, have been super busy. But the Cold Rains, the Side Effects, I did that on a past albums I missed video. But this record, man, every time I come back to it is just so good. I feel like their singer, which I'm going to look up because I don't want to look like a big dummy and not remember his name. So I'm going to do this real quick. But as I'm looking up his name, they just do something different. Like their post-hardcore and like metalcore mentality is just so well executed. I think that as they continue to progress as a band, they just do stuff in such a good way, and I really enjoy. It's Masato. I'm pretty sure it's Masato. Yeah, it is Masato. He is a Japanese American, I believe, so he does speak English pretty well, which again shouldn't deter you from listening to this record if he was speaking Japanese, because even if he was speaking Japanese, my God, it would still sound really awesome. But I think their ability to make a catchy song but also a heavy song just floors me, and this record is filled with a lot of those songs where I feel like there are some like more melodic moments where those moments come out, but I feel like the biggest moments where they shine are like heavier songs where the vocals kind of soar over these really great instrumentals. So go give this one a listen. Some of my personal favorites, I'd say, are I really enjoyed Revolution, I would say Insomnia, and I'd say Mayday are probably my top three. But honestly, realistically, you could go with any of these songs and you do pretty well. I would say maybe not January 1st because it is a softer song, but I think overall you really can't go wrong with any of these tracks off this record. And I feel like they are a highly underrated Japanese band. So go give Cold Rain, the Side Effects, a listen. Well, speaking about Japanese bands, I could not leave this band's record off the list. It is Crystal Lake's Helix. I will say there's a technicality in this record, just because technically it came out in last year's time frame in Japan, but since they are signed to Sharp Tones in the US, it came out in February. So I just wanted to point that out there. If you feel like this is a cheater's rule, it could be slightly, but I feel like it's still well worth it to add it onto the list, whether it be my 2018 list or this year's list, 2019. Crystal Lake, if you've been sleeping on them, I know that unfortunately the past couple times I've wanted to see Crystal Lake, I've had some prior obligations and I haven't been able to see them, and that kind of frustrates me because I've been a fan for such a long time and I've been waiting to see them live. But I know my patience will be rewarded and I'll be able to see them very soon, hopefully in Reading. I will keep you posted about it. But this record is just awesome. I think they as a heavy band are just doing something different. I love that they incorporate a lot of their heritage into their music, in like terms of like chants, like some of the more traditional Japanese instruments. I think that they really are doing stuff that's different. Rio, I think, as a screamer, is probably one of my favorite current ones. I'd say up there with Ryan Kirby of Fit for a King. I think that his screams are just so nasty. Like, probably one of my favorite screamers out there, like I had mentioned before, currently, just because he does have that just deep scream. And he's got some really great highs, and then his mid range is like butter. So give this one a listen. They had some really cool features. I think they had both Tyler and Dan from Gideon on one track. And I think they maybe had another feature that's slipping my mind. But even the songs that don't have features in it just are heavy as balls. And if you're really looking for a good new band, go give these guys a listen because they need to be on your radar. So we're gonna move into the next one, which might be a wild card for some of you, but it is Dollskin's "Love Is Dead" and "We Killed Her." It's very cool to see an all-girl band in 2019. I feel like we don't get to see that too often. Maybe I'm looking in the wrong spots, but man, do these women kill it. I think this record was one of the records that I think flew under a lot of people's radars this year, and I'm just here to give you that PSA just out there, public service out, man. Go give Dollskin a listen. They really do stuff just that's different. They have some like more like punky, heavier tracks. They have some like cool like rock tracks. They have some really cool like pop punk like alternative sort of tracks. They really have a great mix, and this record I feel like shows off the full gambit of what they're able to do. I'm curious to see what they do next because this record is just really solid from front to back as well. Really not a song that I particularly hate off this record. I did a review of it as well earlier on in the year, but this one I could not leave off the list, and I had to keep it in like pretty close to the top 10 because I think it is definitely worth that sort of praise and adoration. So we're going to move into the next one, which is Issues Beautiful Oblivion. I feel like this placement on the list might surprise a lot of people, but I felt like this record, while, may not be one of the best Issues records, in my opinion, I think for what they were doing with it, I think it worked out super successfully. I think I still stand by a lot of the stuff that I said off the record, but I will say that there is a little bit lack of heavy. I don't know if it's necessarily on the part of just like, I guess, Tyler not trying to do screaming, which makes sense, but I feel like the responsibility of that should maybe be more so up to like AJ and Sky. I know that they are both competent screamers, so I feel like for me this record could have been a little bit heavier. Not to say that there aren't songs on here that aren't heavy, I just feel like some of it is just more kind of like, let's just see what we can do, what we can get away with, and a lot of the stuff they did give away with, and I feel like a lot of the songs I did give them credit for in terms of like doing stuff that's different. They really did switch up the ball. I gotta give them credit for that at the very least, and especially like losing Mike as a screamer. I feel like the dynamic of that was just a little bit rough, just not having that. But like I said, I feel like the screaming is in comparable hands with not only Sky but also AJ. And I know that Sky also lands his clean vocals on the first track of the record, I believe is Here's to You. But I really thoroughly enjoyed it despite the gripes that I may have had about it. I think that Tyler again is one of the killer premier vocalists in the scene currently. He's really just on another level, and some of these tracks just are just bops, man. I can't deny it. One that I feel like a lot are on a lot of people's lists of albums of the year, but mine, it's at number 10. So we're gonna move into the next one, which, as you know, I'm a big Gideon fan. I've always loved this band. I will always follow this band, and I had done again one of those quick little review thingies of the albums that I missed, and this one I feel like I couldn't have off my list, and I had to place pretty high because it is just nasty. Like, it is so nasty in the best way possible. I think they really know how to just drop heavy songs, and I feel like in comparison to Champion, this record is just like that much heavier. I think the risks that they took, I think that also kind of the more new metal influence that they have going on with it, I think really works in their favor. And I'm curious to see what they do next as an artist. I think that a lot of people kind of fell off, unfortunately, because of the whole religion thing. But I feel like as artists and musicians. I think they really put out a really good work. Some parts can feel a little bit cheesy lyrically, but I think that overall the heaviness, the aggression behind it, I think is well spoken throughout this entire record. So go give Gideon's Out of Control a listen. If you're into like more hardcore stuff, I know that a lot of people on their list, they would either have like Knock Loose's new record or like Kubla Khan's newest record, but I've always been kind of more of a Gideon fanboy. And not to say that Knock Loose or Kubla Khan didn't put out great records, they did too. But this one just struck me, and as I mentioned before, and going back and listening to a lot of these records, this one just hit on that next level. So go give Gideon's Out of Control a listen. So we're going to move into the next one, which is Void of Visions, Hyper Days. I feel like this, again, much like probably the Gideon one and also probably Dollskin, this one flew on under a lot of people's radars. I accidentally found out about this band this past year. I know I had been kind of an on again, off again fan of them, but I really didn't give them any attention, which I feel like in hindsight was a terrible decision because they are really sick. But not their debut record, their second record, Hyper Days, just blew me out of the water. I think it's a really refreshing, heavy record that pulls a lot from electronic influence. I think that they even have some really cool electronic interludes that kind of, I know it's going to sound cheesy, but like it reminds me a lot of like the kind of the samples and the synths that they use for Attack Attack. I know that sounds terrible, and that I'm not trying to draw the comparison in that respect, but I think just the catchiness of those electronics infused with a lot of like the gent and like progressive metalcore vibes, I think they really just find that happy medium of both, and they stick it so well. And each track off this record I really can't skip. It's just everything just works out so well. And I think going from now on to my number one pick, I think all of them could have either swapped any of these positions. That's how confident I feel in a lot of these records, just based off of like listening to them. But this is Void of Visions, Hyper Days. Go give it a listen. I highly recommend it. So we're going to move into the next one, which is City and Colors, A Pill for Loneliness. I know this one's a more frequent one of audio addiction, and I had done a video about it pretty recently within the past couple days, but I felt like this one I couldn't leave off the list, and I had to place it pretty high. I had to take a trip to go see a band to do an interview with, and I had this record on when I was driving up there, and when I was driving back I had this record on, and Dallas Green, man, I honestly, as a vocalist, I think he's everything you strive for and more. He's just got this purity to his voice. Everything just is like a symphony. It's insane how many records he does and how many records he kills it at, because this one is just another one to add to the arsenal. But I felt like since I hadn't listened to a lot of his music, I would say more currently, and I kind of went into this record blind, I was pleasantly surprised by how good it was, how melodic it was, how great his voice still is, and just how memorable a lot of the tracks are, whether it be like kind of the lyricism behind them, but also just the musicality of it. It just really works. And for this like folksy kind of soulful-ish like record to be up so high on primarily like heavier like lists for this year, I couldn't be more proud of what he's accomplished as an artist, and I'm sure he gets a ton of accolades, but I feel like just, you know, if you happen to watch this, Dallas, I just want to let you know you're doing the Lord's work out here, and I appreciate it. So we're going to move into the next one, which is Counterparts, Nothing Left to Love. That was the other Canadian band that I was referencing to earlier in the burn-in, but I didn't want to kind of jump the gun. But this record, my God, I went back and listened to, like I said, I've gone back and listened to a lot of these records, but this one just hits. I feel like every Counterpart record really kind of hits in a different way, and this one is up there with probably one of my favorite Counterparts records. I know a lot of people love the old shit, but my God, like this record, I especially the No Love, the first track. Oh my God, or yeah, it's Nothing Left to Love. I don't even remember what the for. I have to look it up, but just because I don't want to seem like a big dummy, um, but yeah, no, like they are on another level with this record, and I'm so glad that it came out this year because uh it just they just know what they're doing. And it just feels like every album that they do, it's Love Me, that's what it's called. I knew it was something like with love in it. I couldn't remember it. But anyway, each track off this record is just memorable. I'm literally looking at the track list and I can remember each song off that record. And that is really, I just think, hard to think of and hard to come by with like a lot of records and how often we go through records. I mean, I know I can speak for myself, and by going through just an absolute ton of records, and this one just has this memorability to it. It has this anger, it has this anguish to it, and I think that's what keeps it just memorable to me, is just that, just the relatability to it, and just the emotional values that you will find, or lack thereof, in a record like this. Nothing Left to Love by Counterparts is number 6. And like I had mentioned, I feel like anything after Void of Vision can be swapped out with some of my favorites, number 1 favorites of this year. But we could digress and we continue on. And my next choice, Sleep Tokens, Sundowning. I know a lot of people have been giving a lot of praise to this band, and rightfully so. I feel like they came out with a pretty absolutely refreshing record, and I was really surprised about this band. Again, I had some prior obligations and couldn't go out and see them at Philly, and I feel like I'm regretting it every single day because I know that they put on a good live performance as based off of some live videos. But my God, this record is so good. There's some really great heavy moments. There's some really beautiful melodic moments, and I think that they really kind of encompass this really sort of ambience to their music. I feel like a good comparison to another band would be like the Contortionist, if they were like more R&B. So it kind of feels like a love child between like the Contortionist and the Issues, if I can make that comparison. Just a bonkers record for 2019, and I felt like if I didn't leave this off, or if I did leave it off, I'd be very stupid to not have it on here, just because it is so diverse. There's pretty much a song for anybody, and so as a band to keep an eye out for 2020. I'm excited to see what they do next. So we're going to move into the next one, which is kind of a double feature. It's Bill Murray's Wet Milk as well as Bill Murray's Rich Sips. I feel like for myself, those two records together feels like a full length. I know that's kind of technically cheating, and I don't really care because I love both of those records immensely. But Rich Sips and Wet Milk, they just got. I think Bill Murray's just on another level as a vocalist, as a musical composer. I think he really does stuff that is just kind of like off the wall, and everything that he has been doing lately has really surprised me as a reviewer and as a listener of music. I think he's done something that I feel like the cross-pollination is really awesome. There's some like indie moments like with his earlier stuff, and then more currently I feel like he's been including like a lot of electronic beats, like some like lo-fi moments, and so I feel like he pulls from artists like Joji, like kind of like the more emo rap style of music, and I think he's found like a happy medium between those two things, and so I felt like I couldn't just keep one record on there. I had to talk about the other ones. So whether you choose it to be Wet Milk or Rich Sips, I would take either or in a heartbeat, and I know that I have done a ton of, or I have listened to this record a ton of times, both again Wet Milk and Rich Sips, and Rich Sips hasn't been out for as long, but Wet Milk has been on repeat for a very long time. So we're going to move into number 3, which is Dayseeker's Sleep Talk. If you're familiar with the channel, you know that probably the top 3 should be no surprise to you, but I felt like this record was just so surprising to me as a fan of Dayseeker for a very long time. I feel like this is kind of some of their best material. Despite them probably going like less heavy, I don't really care, honestly. I feel like what they're doing now is just so good. I think Rory's voice has sounded as best as he's ever sounded in a very long time. I think tracks like Crash and Burn, I think like uh, Starving to Be Empty, those tracks really utilize his voice in the best way. He really builds up some of these really powerful moments, and I think overall, I could listen to any one of these songs off this record and be very stoked on it. It's a record that I feel like with the top three, I really can't skip a song just because they are all that good, and it just shows how much talent came out this year. And I, again, was really stoked on this record. So go give Dayseeker Sleep Talk a listen if you haven't already. So we're going to move into the next one. Again, one that you should probably not be too familiar with. I mean, be familiar with if you are familiar with the channel. That was a tongue twister, but it is Thornhill's The Dark Pool. I've been seeing this on a lot of people's lists, and rightfully so. I think this is probably one of the more refreshing progressive metalcore records that I can think of in recent years. This band really kind of does something that's just off the wall, a little bit different. The riffs are awesome, the drumming's fantastic, the bass lines are really good, but I think that really the thing that sold me the most was their singer. I think his voice. I really enjoyed Reptile. Butterfly. Reptile is the song. I really enjoyed Butterfly, the EP that they did recently. But this record, I feel like, just takes it to the next level. And I think tracks like Lily in the Moon, I think Coven was another really fantastic one. In My Skin, it really utilizes his voice, not only from like kind of more of a falsetto-y sort of high perspective, but also just kind of from just a heavy perspective as well. His screaming's really fantastic. I think When We Go, When We Die is another like really good track that I feel like utilizes not only great singing but also some really great screaming as well. And it's just a captivating record. And as I had mentioned before in the Dayseeker one that I just picked, I feel like his record I can just put on, listen to any song. I can listen to the record front to back, doesn't matter. It's just that good. And so Thornhill's The Dark Pool, again, most people shouldn't be surprised by this and these top three, but I felt like this record again needed to give it the respect it deserves. So the number one is Capstan's Restless Hearts Keep Running. I cannot stop putting this record down. I feel like every time that I would get tired of it, I put it on again, and I love it even more so. Everything that this band did on this record, I enjoy. It has all the progressive elements that I really love about the band. It's really got some great melodic moments to it. I think the guitar work is really awesome. There's some really great kind of like shreddy moments, but there's also some really like cool like syncopated stuff. Their drummer is super awesome. I think just the whole band in general is super talented. And I think that all the songs, wow, some people might think that they're just like crazy in terms of like, sonic presence. I think that it works out so well. And again, it is one album that I can listen to from front to back and listen to all the songs and be very stoked on it. It has some more like more progressive metal stuff. Then they have stuff that kind of borrows more so from like pop punk. They have some stuff that borrows from like more alternative based stuff, and then they also have like harmonies. They have some screaming, they have some singing. It's really a collective for everybody, and I feel like if you are a fan of like progressive post hardcore, this is a band to obviously keep your eye out for in 2020, because they are one that I cannot stop putting this record down, and every time that I feel like I need to quit listening to this record, I will listen to it even more so. So that is my list for this year of albums and EPs of this year. It was so many to go through. I've been doing this for almost an hour. My voice feels like it's so hoarse right now, but I'd love to know what you guys think about my list. Leave a comment down below of what you agree with, what you disagree with. What is your top 5? I'd really like to know. I think that this year had some really awesome music, and I was definitely surprised at how many good records that came out this year. And I'm just not saying like good records. I'm talking about like really good records. And so even ones that I didn't mention this year, I just feel like each year as we continue on and on, there are better and better bands to come out and put out better and better records. So that is my choices for 2019. This kind of concludes 2019 as we know it. This will probably be the last video of 2019 for me, at least. And so I just want to thank you guys so much. I know this is a live video and it's already been going for an hour, so I feel like I want to take up more of your time if you're watching this after the fact. But thank you guys so much for this year. Some of my biggest bucket list dreams happened this year, and it's crazy to think, how hard I've worked at this for almost 4 years in February, and to see just the progression of the channel, and to see all of you people that care a lot about music and have been supporting me either from the beginning or just yesterday. It really honestly and truly means a lot, and I know that I thank everybody in my video every time that I get the chance to, but it's just insane the amount of positivity and growth that has been able to happen in this channel within not only just this year pretty much. And so I just want to thank you guys so much again. I hope that you all had a happy holidays and have a happy new year that is just filled with some of the best things that you can think of, just because people who watch this, people who check it out, I feel like you guys deserve it. So, again, leave it in the comments what your picks are for this year in terms of 2019. If you could, give us a follow above. The social media link handles are above. So if you could give us a follow, that would be greatly appreciated. If you want to support me, and I know I don't talk about it a lot, but I feel like if you are interested in supporting us, or at least supporting me and what I do, I have a link in the bio to my merch store. I'll be doing a video in January, which is in a couple days, about a charity thing that I'll be running for the entire month. It is a cause that is near and dear to my heart. So I hope that, during this holiday season, that you'd be able to give back to hopefully what I hope to consider an annual thing. So that is going to be very awesome. And if you enjoyed it, I know it's been an hour video, so if you made it, salutes to you. But please click the subscribe button, hit that bell. It goes a long way. And thank you to every band, artist, PR company, my parents, my sister, any of my family members that have been supporting me, my friends, whether it be actual friends or like band friends. Honestly and truly, your support means the world, and I don't know what I would do without you guys. So thank you so much. Thank you to all the fans. Lastly, you guys are the best. I love all of you, and I hope to be talking with you all in 2020. I have some really cool videos. I'm going to be doing bands that I wish that I hope get to back together in 2020, and some other content as well in terms of like bands that are possibly releasing stuff in the new year. So check back with the channel for that. Thank you for the literal one person that's watching this video. I don't know who you are. I would assume it's a family member, but thank you for watching, and hopefully you guys will comment down below later on, and I hope to hear from you all soon. Again, thank you guys so much. Salutes.